30 cents for your mom's condolence money. That'll be enough, right? I got work tomorrow, so handle the funeral by yourself. My mother passed away, and the day before the funeral, my husband dropped that bomb. What's wrong with this guy? His words ignited dark fury deep within me. If I could, I'd punch him right now. Unforgivable. Well then, your thing is worth 30 cents too, huh? I've decided to get the ultimate revenge on my husband. I'm Grace, 28. I got married to Noah, who is of the same age, just a year ago. We both work full-time at separate companies. We met at a co-workers singles mixer a year ago. I was hesitant at first, never having dated, and feeling out of place. A colleague insisted, so I reluctantly agreed to join, knowing I was only invited to make the number of people match. I won't be able to liven up the conversation anyway, so I'll just go along and get through it. On the day of the mixer, even on the train ride to the venue, I kept thinking about it. I was more of an introverted indoor person, enjoying hobbies like reading. Maybe because of that, I didn't have many female friends, let alone male friends, which I've never had any. With those anxious feelings, the mixer began. I sat quietly in a corner, sipping my drink, trying to keep to myself. Drinking alone like that isn't much fun, is it? It was Noah who approached me, striking up a conversation. Noah was the most handsome and cheerful person among the participants, but I couldn't understand why he was so actively talking to me. There were other girls there who were prettier and more cheerful than me. At first, I was wary of Noah, who approached me so suddenly, thinking he might be a player. But I got caught up in his conversation skills and gradually became able to talk to him as a friend. Talking with Noah was really enjoyable, and before I knew it, the end of the mixer was approaching. As the mixer ended, he asked for my number. Hey, wanna exchange numbers? Feeling perplexed, I exchanged numbers with him, and we went home for the day. The next day, I received a message from him. I'd like to meet up, just the two of us next time. Seeing that message, I wondered if I was dreaming. I had never been invited by a man before, and I thought maybe he was teasing me as a truth or dare game. Really? Well then, sure, let's meet up. Ecstatic at the invitation from Noah, I agreed to meet up. A week later, I went out for a meal with Noah. After that, Noah and I went on several dates, and we officially started going out. Never having had a boyfriend before, I was overjoyed at my first ever boyfriend, and even did a little dance on the spot as I was so happy. I can't believe this is happening. When I went home and told Mom about my boyfriend, she glanced at the fireplace mantle. At the other end of her gaze was my father's portrait, who passed away about 10 years ago. My mom had always taken care of me alone. Seeing her smile at my announcement while looking at my dad made me incredibly happy, and tears welled up naturally. I learned during our dates that Noah had lost both parents at a young age, so he understood the loneliness of not having a father. About 3 months into our relationship, one day Noah proposed to me. I'm so happy. But with Mom and all, I need some time to think. I was genuinely thrilled, but I decided to temporarily postpone my reply to Noah's proposal. About a month into our relationship, my mother was diagnosed with terminal colon cancer, with doctors giving her only 6 months to live. The time I had left to spend with her was short. I told Noah about it. Maybe my mom would pass away soon. I definitely wanted to get married, but I also wanted to spend time with my mom, so my heart wavered. I want to help your mom too. Most of all, I want her to see you in your wedding dress while she's still around. Seeing me troubled, Noah made his intentions clear, and I couldn't help but break down in tears from his overwhelming consideration. Marrying someone who cared so much about me made me truly happy. I'm really happy. Thank you. Yes, let's get married. And so, I married Noah, and our married life began. I firmly believed that a happy life awaited me from now on. However, my happiness didn't last long. Around a month after marriage, my husband's attitude suddenly changed. Despite being so kind when we were dating, he started dumping all the housework on me, saying he was tired from work. Hey, dinner's ready. Even if I called out loudly, my husband seldom came right away. His study room was upstairs, and apparently, he couldn't hear me over the loud TV. I kept calling for a while until he finally showed up at the dining table, a scene that repeated almost every day. Even on holidays, he casually left all the housework to me, saying, "I'm hanging out with friends today, so take care of the chores." I was getting frustrated with such a husband. About a month later of enduring such a life, I reached my limit and said, "I work too. Can't you help with the housework on weekends?" But my husband, looking annoyed, said, "Can't help it. I have plans with friends on weekends too." "You wouldn't understand since you don't have many friends." I thought it was too much to say that to my face, but I didn't want to argue anymore, so I didn't say anything more. Before I knew it, I tasted blood in my mouth. I had been biting my lips, enduring my husband's remarks for so long that I had cut my lips. I was so outraged by his last words that if I could, I would have just stormed out of the house right then and there. From the next day on, my husband's uncooperative attitude escalated. He started complaining about my housework, saying things like, "This food is terrible. I'd rather have a frozen dinner, and are you really cleaning? It doesn't look clean at all." And eventually, he started spewing insults like, "You should be grateful that a great guy like me married a gloomy person like you." When I asked him why he married me, he said, "Well, with you, I don't have to worry about you cheating on me, right? You do all the housework even when I make random excuses. You were just convenient for me to marry." It was a shocking remark, and I was utterly dismayed. Hearing that statement made me feel like I was falling apart. I desperately wanted to believe that at least what he said about my mom was true. So, I asked him anxiously, "But what you said about my mom, about wanting to help her was true, right?" But his complete denial shattered my hopes, saying, "I don't care about your mom. I said it just so we could get married. That makes me look better, right?" I'm tempted to just punch his face in right here and now until his face was unrecognizable. That feeling surged up within me, but I held back. I even considered getting a divorce, but I couldn't bring myself to broach the subject with my husband. I thought that if I divorced him now after just getting married, I might never get another chance. Then, one day, 3 months later, I received a sudden call from a nurse at the hospital where my mother was admitted. "Grace, your mother's condition has suddenly worsened, and it's critical. Please come right away." My mother had been given a prognosis, so I was somewhat prepared, but when I heard those words, my mind went blank. For about a minute, I was silent, trying to process what the nurse had said. "Got it. I'll be right there." Coming to my senses, I hung up and immediately headed to the hospital. "Mom, at least stay alive until I get there," I pleaded as I entered my mother's hospital room, but she had already passed away. "Why did you have to die before I got here? Mom, wake up. Wake up, please." I knew there would be no response, but I desperately kept calling out to her, unable to believe that my mother was gone. After a while, when I calmed down, I also contacted my husband. "Mom just passed away. Can you come to the hospital?" "No, I'm too busy with work to go." Even though it was his mother-in-law who passed away, my husband didn't bother showing up, saying he had a busy work schedule. The next day, preparations for my mother's funeral began, but my husband was still lazing around at home as usual. It was a Saturday, and he was supposed to have the day off too. I was busy with arrangements with the funeral home and other things related to the funeral, so I thought he could at least help with the housework. Seeing his laziness, I grew irritated and said, "You're a hindrance, so why don't you go out to enjoy yourself like you always do?" I blurted out to him, unable to bottle up my emotions. "If you're going to take it that far, then I guess I'll do so." In response to my statement, my husband smiled and left the house, still grinning. What's with him, going out to have fun at a time like this? What's he thinking? That night, when my husband returned from his outing, I tried to talk to him about the funeral arrangements for the next day. "Hey, about the flow of tomorrow's funeral." "Oh, I won't be attending the funeral tomorrow." Huh? Is he joking? I couldn't understand what he was saying. She's your mother-in-law, you know. It's unthinkable that you wouldn't attend. Can't be helped, can it? I have to leave for a business trip starting tomorrow. If it's about work, I'll call the company for you. I'll ask for bereavement leave. My husband always makes excuses about work. Does he really think those excuses will work? I tried to grab his phone to call the company, but he yelled at me, "Don't act so selfishly." And I couldn't do anything more. I can't attend the funeral, but I'll give a condolence gift. Here. As he said that, he placed 3 dimes on the table. What kind of joke is this at a time like this? Frankly, I don't recall ever being indebted to your mom. That should be sufficient. Yep, this guy is definitely messed up. Anger toward my husband surged up inside me to a degree I hadn't felt before. If he was really being true to his words, I wanted to punch him right then and there. Sure enough, the next day, my husband was nowhere to be seen at the funeral. The funeral itself went smoothly, and we were able to say our last goodbyes to my mom peacefully. With all the funeral proceedings over, 3 days later, I arranged to have lunch with a friend who had attended the funeral. It was a rare opportunity to relax and enjoy lunch with a friend. As we finished our meal and began to think about leaving, my friend hesitantly whispered to me, "By the way, Grace, I think it was right after you married Noah that I saw him walking around town with another woman." My friend mentioned this during lunch with an apologetic tone. Huh. No way, right? Maybe you just made a mistake. I brushed it off at the time, but given my husband's reputation for being flirtatious, maybe it was true. 2 days later, while my husband was taking a bath, I took a peek at his phone. Fortunately, he hadn't locked it. He must have been careless, not expecting me to peek at his phone. I decided to check for myself if my husband was really cheating. The messages clearly indicated that both parties were having an affair, with lines like, "I want to see you right away and I'd rather be with you than with that plain-looking woman." When I looked in the photo folder next, it seemed they were spending a considerable amount of time together. There were numerous photos of them looking chummy together, almost every week. Just as I thought, he was cheating. Then, when I checked the calendar, there were even plans for trips with the affair partner firmly noted down. Wait a minute, isn't this the day of my mother's funeral? Despite telling me he had to go on a business trip during my mother's funeral, he had actually lied to me and gone on an affair trip. The moment I saw that, I felt so angry that I almost wanted to smash his phone. But I couldn't just destroy the evidence like that, so I calmed down and copied all the photos and messages from my husband's phone to mine. After discreetly returning the phone to its original position so my husband wouldn't notice, I reviewed the email's copies. From those emails, I also learned the name of his affair partner. It seemed to be a junior colleague who worked at the same company as my husband. Despite claiming to be busy with work when my mother passed away, he was doing such a thing. I could never forgive him for this. The next day, I immediately made an appointment with a lawyer with the evidence in hand, expressing my desire for divorce and seeking advice. I decided to hire the lawyer to represent me and thoroughly corner my husband, pushing him into hell. That night, my husband said to me, "By the way, our company's president is getting married in a month, so prepare a gift. The president wants to make it grand, so he said to bring your wife along. Keep that day free, okay?" In a month, huh? Got it. I said I would go to the wedding, but there's no way that's happening. I don't have any grudges against the president of my husband's company, but I have absolutely no intention of going. I decided to cancel last minute like what happened last time, and give my husband a hard time. During that month, I decided to take action to get revenge on my husband. To start, I asked my husband about the dress I should wear on the day. "Hey, I shouldn't wear anything weird to meet the president, right? I don't have many good dresses, so want to go shopping with me?" I suggested, luring my husband out to buy a dress. My husband went all out and bought me a nice dress, especially for the president's wedding. He would never buy me such nice clothes under normal circumstances. This guy is just hopeless, only thinking about himself. I felt a moment of coldness, but then said, "Thanks. I'm looking forward to wearing this to the wedding." I emphasized to my husband how excited I was for the wedding day, so he wouldn't suspect a thing. Next up, the gift I was asked to prepare was already taken care of. I decided on a monetary gift, so I got a fancy envelope made of fine quality paper, but I only put 30 cents inside. He's not going to bother checking the contents anyway. So, a month later, on the eve of my husband's boss's wedding, I put my plan into action. "Sorry, I have work tomorrow, so I can't make it to the wedding." Of course, work was a big fat lie. Why are you bringing this up the day before? Can't you just take the day off for work? And I bought you that nice dress. What are we going to do with it? You said you were looking forward to wearing it." My husband angrily confronted me. From my perspective, he was doing the same thing he did back then. But it can't be helped. When you really have work, you have to prioritize that, right? Just like how you didn't attend my mother's funeral, claiming you had work. My husband seemed irritated by my response, but didn't say anything more. And on the morning of the wedding day, "Here you go, this is the gift." I handed my husband the gift envelope. Yay. All right, I'm off. He still seemed to be in a bad mood since yesterday, but seeing him off to the wedding made me grin uncontrollably. That's because, just like my husband did to my mother, I only put 30 cents in the gift envelope. My husband gave me such a disgusting condolence gift at my mother's funeral, but instead of attending the ceremony, he went on an extramarital trip. And yet, he still asked me to prepare the wedding gift. Then when night came and my husband came home, he saw me and he suddenly angrily yelled at me. "Hey! What kind of joke is this? You've embarrassed me big time. What are you talking about? What's going on?" I played dumb in response to my husband's aggression. After the wedding, on the way home, the boss called and said there was only 30 cents in the envelope. Is this some kind of mistake? I was completely embarrassed. But you couldn't even give more than 30 cents for my mother's condolence, right? You said it was enough since you didn't owe her anything. I also don't recall ever being indebted to your company's boss, so I thought this amount was sufficient. I repeated the same act my husband did to my mother back then. What kind of talk is that? The boss pays me well, so we can live a life like this. At least I feel grateful to him. I never thought you were such an ungrateful person, lacking any sense of common decency. I can't live with someone who can't even maintain my dignity. I want a divorce. I clearly heard my husband say divorce. Divorce. Fine by me. Great. I'd rather leave you than live with someone who didn't attend his mother-in-law's funeral to go on an affair trip with his colleague. I said to my husband, without holding back. The moment I mentioned cheating, my husband couldn't hide his agitation, and he had shifty eyes. Hey, cheating. That's ridiculous. I mean, at that time, I really had work. My husband, stumbling over his words, desperately tried to come up with excuses, but he was in for a rude awakening if he thought he could easily get through this. What? Did you think I wouldn't notice? Then how do you explain this? You two seem really close, and you're even exchanging emails like this. I confronted my husband, showing him the evidence I copied between him and his affair partner. The emails contained derogatory remarks about me, like I can't imagine having a kid with that ugly woman. What a poor kid if it ends up looking like her, and I wish I had more days off. If I say I'm going out with friends on weekends, she won't say anything. I read out these emails to my husband and said, "Looks like you've been making a fool out of me behind my back." Still want to deny it. My husband, who had his emails, photos, and plans copied, couldn't say anything in response to my questions. I haven't forgotten what you said to me before about me being a convenient woman. Even though I was happy about getting married at the time, I didn't want to get divorced, so I just endured it when you said that. But to think you were cheating on me too. I'm not someone who will keep taking it forever, you know. I couldn't help but get emotional and raise my voice as I reminded my husband of what he said back then. But he remained silent, refusing to answer any of my questions. If you can't say anything, that means you're admitting it, right? Oh, by the way, didn't you mention divorce earlier? Then sign this divorce paper. Oh, and about the cheating, I've already consulted a lawyer and will be seeking compensation from both you and your lover, I said, and my husband readily admitted to the affair. Fine. By the way, how much? He asked. I'm asking for $30K from you and $10K from your lover. By the way, I'll be sending a letter to your lover demanding payment. I informed him of the compensation amounts. My husband was surprised by the large sum of $30K, but ultimately agreed to pay the full amount, although he requested to pay it in installments due to financial constraints. You can pay in installments, but if there are any delays, you would have to pay the remaining balance in full regardless of any situation. I agreed to accept his request, adding that condition. Okay, it's a deal. I'll definitely pay, he said. The conditions we both presented were accepted, settling the matter for the time being. Oh, by the way, could you make a call to your mistress? I know her name, workplace, and age, but I don't know her address. I asked. Well, about that, it's a bit. My husband tried to defend his mistress even at this point. What are you saying? Just make the call already. I yelled at my husband, who then hastily dialed his mistress's number. It's me, but there's someone who wants to talk to you. My husband handed me the phone. Although I was about to lose my temper, I remained calm and ruthless as I spoke to my husband's mistress on the phone. Hello. This is Grace, Noah's wife. I'm sure you've always taken good care of my husband. I have something I need to confirm. As soon as I took over the call from my husband, his mistress must have realized that their affair had been exposed. I'm really sorry. I knew I was doing something wrong, but I couldn't stop, she said tearfully, apologizing. Well, there's no need to apologize. I'm sure you had a good time, didn't you? More importantly, could you tell me your address? I'd like to send a letter regarding this matter. However, I ignored her apology and firmly informed her that I would still be demanding compensation, and I asked for her address. The next day, I had my lawyer send a letter to the address I obtained regarding the matter at hand. 2 days later, as I was packing my things to leave my husband's house for good, he apologized, saying, "I'm really sorry. I regret everything. It's too late to apologize now. The humiliation I suffered back then will never heal, and I'll never forgive you. I hope you and that girl will live happily ever after," I said sarcastically, leaving the house. I felt tears of frustration flow on the train ride back to my childhood home, but I was also relieved that I could finally say what I wanted to say to my husband, and after crying for a while, I felt a sense of liberation. Although my married life was short, lasting only about 6 months, I was glad I could break up with such a man early on. However, the panicked expression on my husband's face when I confronted him was unforgettable. With those farts in mind, I returned to my now empty childhood home. About a month later, I found peace in my daily life without any snide remarks. But then, I received a call from my ex-husband. "Hello. What's up?" I answered, not expecting anything in particular. "So, since I got caught cheating at work, I got fired and I can't pay this month's compensation." My ex-husband called to ask for more time to pay the compensation. "That's not really my problem, is it? Figure out a way to come up with the money and make sure to deposit it by the deadline," I replied. Even so, I have nowhere else to turn. How pathetic of a man he must be. Even his mistress, when I demanded compensation from her, promptly deposited the full amount. Well then, why don't you ask your mistress for an advance? It's not that simple. We broke up right after, and now I can't reach her. I burst into laughter upon hearing that. It serves him right for treating his own in-laws poorly, skipping funerals, and going on affair trips. Is that so? Well, serves you right. I couldn't help but speak my mind as I hung up on my ex-husband. In the end, there were no delays in paying the compensation for that month or any month thereafter. He probably thought he could tug at my heartstrings because he was reluctant to part with his money. My first marriage was a disaster with an outrageous man, but 2 years after divorcing him, I met another man. After 2 years of dating, we're getting married next month. Unlike my ex-husband, he's truly sincere and very kind to me. Worried that he might change his attitude and stop doing household chores after marriage, I decided to move in with him after dating for a year. I hesitated to test him, but even after moving in together, his kindness remained unchanged, and he actively helped with household chores without me having to say anything. We went on dates together every time we had a day off. Even after we're married, will you still go out on dates with me like this? Will you still be kind to me? Yeah, of course. Seeing him smile and answer my questions, I felt like I could be happy with him. Next time, even though challenges may still lie ahead, I hope to have a marriage life where I feel more happiness than pain.